Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Entrepreneurship Matters. My name is Alicia Wilson. I'm Vice President for Economic Development for Johns Hopkins University and Johns Hopkins Health System. And it is my pleasure to welcome you to season 4. We are talking all about the film industry today with two amazing entrepreneurs in our community. When I give you the names, when you see them come on screen, you're going to say, how, Alicia, did you get these two legends on Entrepreneurship Matters? But I won't reveal my secrets, but we're going to launch right into the conversation in just a minute. We know that successful entrepreneurs, successful businesses are not built in a day. It takes a lot of grit, long-term commitment, and a lot of passion to make it happen. And the two entrepreneurs you'll hear from today are no different. Let me first introduce you to Tressa Azarel Smallwood of Megamind Media. And we'll welcome her on the screen, and Anthony Fykes of Next Act Cinema. You are in for a treat, and we're gonna have some fun. This is going viral. This is going to viral. I had so many calls about today's show. So let me introduce both of them, and we're going to launch right into the conversation. First, let me introduce you to Tressa Azarel Smallwood of Megamind Media. Megamind Media is an American film and production company specializing in book to film adaptations and original television series and programming. Founded by award-winning book publisher Tressa Azarel Smallwood. Tressa has produced several award-winning movies. We're going to talk about them so you all can watch, which have been adapted to film and TV series for networks such as Viacom, CBS, BET, TV One, Urban Movie Channel, and more. With an ever-increasing volume of content, we are saying this. Tressa has positioned Megamind Media to become the fastest growing film production company in America. What an honor to have you on, Tressa, today.
Hi, Alicia.
Honored. Thank you. Let me next introduce Anthony Fykes. Anthony is co-founder of Next Act Cinema. If you have not watched the movie there, you've missed out. With little to no experience in the movie and theater industry, and along with his co-founder, Robert Wright, Anthony turned a rundown 1930 Art Deco theater into a boutique entertainment theater, offering cuisine, cocktails, and curated content in a setting that feels like the comfort of your home, only better, right? The Next Act experience offers state-of-the-art, modern, upscale entertainment destination right outside of Baltimore in Pikesville. The Next Act experience combines state-of-the-art theater design, sound, and image excellence, luxurious seating paired with sensual, live interactive entertainment that complements the feature film you're viewing. Next Act is 100% minority owned. It's since operating in 2019. They have had tremendous traction, so much that they've gotten the attention of Steve Harvey, Travel Noir, Huffington Post, Washington Post, and numerous local news and radio press. Anthony and Robert both have sales and marketing backgrounds. We're going to talk about the backgrounds that both led you to be these legends from the healthcare industry. Amazing. Anthony holds both BA and MBA degrees. Welcome, Anthony, as well on Entrepreneurship Matters. So excited to have you both on today.
Thank you for having us.
So we're going to launch right into this conversation. And I really did get a number of calls from so many young people saying, how did you get them to on the show? And can you get them to talk about their background? So I'm going to start with you, Tressa.
Yeah.
How did you build yourself in this industry? I know you're an author, we know, but how did you build what is now Megamind Productions?
Yeah. So first of all, thanks for having me. I really appreciate you, Alicia. Excited about being here. So for me, I had a very non-traditional way into the film and TV industry. I was a school teacher. I have a master's in education, so I thought I was going to teach the rest of my life. And I had a situation where I was pregnant with my daughter, Bailey, who is now 20. And the doctor put me on bed rest because while I was pregnant, they said, hey, you're having some issues and you need to spend your next 6 months on bed rest. During that time, I wrote a book. It became a bestseller. And so I didn't go back to work. So I started with book and creating content first, right?
Mhm.
And being a content creator and pretty much building a book empire, I kept hearing people in the film and TV industry saying, hey, you have content. You know, we need to talk about either buying the rights to this content or maybe you co-producing something. And so the bells went off and I said, well, I need to learn how to produce movies on my own since I have over 160 something books. And I shot my very first movie in 2015. It was scary, y'all. I definitely thought I was going to fail. It was a very, I still remember it like it was yesterday. It was a very challenging time for me, but it was a huge success. I adapted a book called Secrets of a Housewife into a movie called Secrets. Entered it into the Black Film Festival in Miami in 2016. We ended up not only doing really well at the festival, but I got a deal with BET. And that was history. From then, you know, we've just been churning out the movies and we never stop. So, you know, I know that that's different going from school teacher to author to publisher to movie producer, but I would say the reason why my past, you know, other people can see that and say, oh, you know, I can do that too, is because I just started teaching myself. And it's the knowledge that gets you where you need to be. So
Yes. Beautifully how you stated that. And I love how you talked about, because somebody on Facebook said, yeah, a long yes, because they heard what you said, but how you don't have to be one dimensional, that you can evolve and shift. And usually I'm coming back to the story that you wrote while on bed rest in 6 months, which is like unheard of, but we're going to come back to that. Anthony, how about you? How did you go from, you are in the healthcare industry, MBA, BA, and then you're in the movie industry now. So take us through your entrepreneurship journey.
Yeah, it was a pretty big pivot, right? I think, you know, for most entrepreneurs, there's a lot of different, you know, motivations that get them to kind of where they are, right? You know, sometimes it could be money, it could be flexibility, it could be control. You know, I think, you know, when Robert kind of pitched the idea to me around opening a movie theater, the first thing I thought was Netflix, HBO, like, you know, why would we do this in a time when, you know, the streaming platforms have taken such a big lion's share, you know, of, movie industry revenue. And so for me, I had always had that entrepreneurial bug. My wife, you know, has always told me, you know, Tony, you got to kind of get out of the corporate environment and do your own thing. And so a lot of it for me was more about flexibility. And so Robert pitched the idea to me, you know, really over at a restaurant, you know, oftentimes, you know, these, you know, businesses are created in someone's, you know, backyard or, you know, in someone's bedroom, right? Or in a college dorm room. You know, ours is created really at a restaurant. And he pitched the idea to me and said, Tony, you know, you have a different, you know, expertise in you know, really operations, and I have an expertise in sound and quality. You know, I think that we can partner that together and open up a movie theater. And again, immediately I was kind of nervous about it, but I saw the potential of it because he had also shared with me a couple of his different ideas on his business plan and where he wanted this to go. And so I said to myself, you know what, why not take this risk, right? Oftentimes, you find the biggest rewards, right, in the risk that you take. And so for me, it was that road less traveled that I said, listen, you know what, we got to change the game a little bit and do something different, right? Because we didn't see the representation within our community of, young Black men, opening up things like a movie theater. And so I wanted to take that risk, I think, with Robert. And oftentimes it was, again, it was a kind of, like I said, that road less traveled, and there was a lot of detours. But we're now at a point where we're 3 years in it, still through COVID, but we're still, surviving and thriving. And so that's really where it started. It started at a restaurant one day. Robert pitched the idea to me, and I really wanted to take the risk because I had the motivation to really own, my future, own the future of my family, and have much more flexibility and control of where I was going to be in the next 10 years.
Excellent. I mean, it's so inspirational. And we have so many people giving y'all shout outs. So let me tell folks how you can engage. I feel like all of you remember how you engage in this, but yes, on Facebook, you put in those comments in the chat. I will receive all of those. If you're on Zoom, put all those comments in the chat. I will get to all of them. If you're listening on the phone, I know a lot of you listen on the rate, like a radio program, text 22333, type JHUWL in the message, and I'll get all those questions and weave them into this conversation that we're having. I want to go back to Tressa, and then I'm going to come to you, Robert, with this question. So both of you have an earth-shattering, huge idea, a big, audacious idea. How did you think about turning it into a business? Because Tressa, you could have self-published, given those books away and been done. Anthony could have said, you know what, not going to do this, we're going to do, But how do you go from, you could have had your great meal, said that's a great idea, and not moved into a business. But what were the steps you went into really turning your idea, your concept into a business? So Tressa, can you take us through your journey?
Sure. And I'll use both the book publishing company and then kind of pivot over to the movie side since publishing came first. So we all know that everybody out here has tons of ideas, right? But if you don't have an execution plan, it never really turns into a viable business. So for me, I knew that going in. I always had a very strong marketing background. So even when I was teaching, it was like, okay, if I'm going to do this, let me put that plan together. So a business plan is number one. Don't move without a business plan. And if you don't have a business plan, then it means you're not really serious. It's really just still an idea, right? And so for me, I said, all right, if I'm going to really do this, let me figure out how do I produce books at a rate where when I start to sell them, whether it was back then when I started, they were still Borders and Walden books. And now obviously we don't have all of those bookstores for printed books. So the business has changed even again with the whole Kindle and electronics. But when I first started, it was all about printing books at a cost that made sense and being able to get contracts to get distribution into those stores. That's what made the difference between me and the average self-published author. When I first decided to self-publish, I had so many naysayers saying, don't do it. Why would you do that? And that doesn't make sense. Well, it's the ownership piece. I heard Anthony mention those words earlier, and we have the same sentiment that we're really doing this for ownership and for our families, because so many people get ideas and then they sell out. It's like, look, I'm gonna just here you go, give me a couple of dollars and there you go. Right. Versus maintaining that ownership for you, your family, legacy, and for your future. It made a difference to me. So it was always a long-term plan to make that make sense. But all of the pieces of the puzzle have to line up, from your accounting systems to your attorneys to maintaining the rights to these projects. And so I took that same scenario and moved it when I started to produce movies. Now, because I maintained the rights to the books, I now own the rights to produce the book, take the content, and now do movies. Well, I'm hit with the same situation where when it's time to license those rights, whether it's a Netflix or a BET or TV One, well, you have options, right? Sometimes people want to buy your stuff. You have options. You can now sell again or maintain your rights and just license. So I think it's all about having your business structure lined up, making sure you have the right resources, and spend the money and hire the people who are smarter than you, right? I'm not an attorney. I'm not an accountant. You got to pay for those services. And most people don't want to pay. That's right. I paid for mentorship. I have so many mentors till it's not even funny. But every morning I'm like, hey, need to talk. And I'm just hanging out with people who know more than me.
That's right.
Yeah. Beautifully said. I wrote down 7 steps of what you just talked about. I'm going to give them back. I know there are many people taking notes from what you just said. First, you started with a business plan. And I really love how you talked about the seriousness of really what you were building required that plan. 2, you tried to understand both the ownership and the distribution channels of your product, of how are you going to get it to market. 3rd, focused on the idea of owning your ideas to have the ability to build a legacy, to leave something. 6, licensing, understanding the ramifications of this. 5th, your business structure, really being thoughtful about that. That was 5. 6, paying for those individuals, your attorney, your accountant, making sure that you're really getting that really great infrastructure undergirding. And then 7, the mentorship, which we've heard entrepreneurs talk over and over again about not having to live through every mistake, but getting to have somebody to say, what the mistakes are. Excellent. I know many people are just taking those down. Anthony, how about you? You went from the dinner, and then we see your cinema come up, but there are a lot of steps between this. So take us through your process of starting your business.
Yeah, so I think, as an entrepreneur, right, your mindset is always about how do you survive? It is always about survival, right? From the time, Tressa's point, time you get the idea, right, and to even today, right, in this type of climate, we're constantly, rethinking, revamping, how do we make it to the next step even out of this, right? And so, to Tressa's point, for Rob and I, because we had that, that corporate kind of background, one of the things that we also said was, look, we have to construct a very well thought out and planned business plan. Because one, we went to the bank, because we wanted to try to get some funding. We got turned down from funding, but that's a completely different story we can talk about later. But it started though with the business plan, right? And then we had to continue to have that business plan evolve, right? So where do we want to be in the next 60 days? Where do we want to be in the next 180 days? So we constantly made sure that our business plan was really at the base and the foundation to where we wanted to be in the next step. And then it was, Tressa also mentioned this about mentorship, right? So we didn't know a whole lot of individuals within this industry at all. And so some of it, you kind of walk out on faith and say, as you build it, right, they will come. And so as we started to learn a little bit more, we then started becoming a part of a lot of these circles. And one of the things that we've noticed about our industry is that they are super close. It is extremely familiar, and people are willing to help you out. And so you'll learn that it's just this really familiar community that we didn't know that we had options to, that really kind of helped us survive, and we learned and we grew, just with that kind of innate, type of, hey, you know what, this is a community, we're going to help you through this. And then it was about building the business, right? So it was about, okay, how much money do we have in the bank? How much money, how much funding can we have? Do we have construction guys? And then also, Tressa brought this up, you cannot take shortcuts. And so for us, right, we wanted to make sure that the people that we hired, right, to help support the business was going to, was basically going to hold us accountable, right? So we didn't want to, we went with a very, not necessarily cheap, booking company. We got an accounting, right? We paid for those services because we knew that those type of services would help us out in the long run, get to the point where we needed to be. Because let's think about this 3 years in advance. If we didn't have an accountant, there's no way we would have been able to survive COVID. Right. And so instead of doing some of those things on our own, we outsourced a lot of that. And those kind of things, you can't take shortcuts when you're an entrepreneur. You try to do so much on your own because you're trying to survive. But there's so many just, fundamental things that a mentor can help you with to say, here's where you want to be, but here's how you get there. And these are the things that you need.
Yeah, no, I think you said some really, really gems that people should take note of. I took down 5, maybe 6. Of them, and first one again rooted in that business plan, really making sure you have that. I also took this down, maybe this is 1B, but the mindset. And I think entrepreneurs talk a lot about that mindset. Second, to continue to let that business plan evolve, so not a static plan, but really recognizing that. Mentorship, understanding the industry and creating a network within your industry. 5th, building your business team. So your accountants, your attorneys, and you're right. If you didn't have your taxes done right, you couldn't have gotten a PPP loan. They wouldn't be able to survive so many. You didn't realize you were preparing for that, but excellent points. Let me ask this question because it came up because both of you talked about this, which was funding, finding the funding to build your business. And I think, Anthony, you talked about getting turned down for a loan in a bank. Tressa, I have no idea how you built the empire, but how did you raise funding for your business? That's one of the first questions we got on Facebook from some of our viewers. How did you both approach funding, and how has that changed over time once you've had, a little bit of wind at your back? So Tressa, why don't you start, and then Anthony?
Yep, I will jump in. Well, listen, when I heard Anthony say he was turned down, I didn't even go to the bank because for the movies, I didn't even go because I knew the answer, right? You already know that banks are not going to fund your movie because for them, that's a dream. They're like, we don't even know if your movie is good. We don't even know if people come to see it. So it's all traditionally, it's very difficult to get loans for movies. That's why there's, a lot of private equity going on. So for me, because I knew that, I started with my family. I'm, come from a family full of entrepreneurs. I started with my sister and her husband. And it was like, listen, we need 500,000. Let's call everybody in the family and see where we're going to get this money. We raised the money pretty quickly. Now, I will tell you, like, my mom invested in my first movie. And even though she invested, everybody has a risk tolerance, right? And for her, she was thinking like, girl, what is this? What is this? And so now she's extremely happy because that was 5 years ago. Right. And so in my family, all of the investors, you make money the rest of your life. So if you think about movies like Scarface, Color Purple, whoever owns those movies, their children and their children will get paid the rest of their lives. And so now they obviously love the idea, but originally it was like, okay, they trusted me enough to know that my grind is real. They saw the business ethics from, running a book publishing company. So it wasn't like I was this person that it was just coming out of the blue saying, hey, I want to do a movie. But it was that fear factor of you've never done a movie before. You haven't been to film school, but it was that trust factor. So I'm sure I couldn't have gotten anybody else outside of my family to buy into that. Fast forward, we are on our 17th movie that we filmed, but 13th movie in terms that we own. Okay, so we have a catalog where we own 13 movies, and it's family. And so now people are like throwing money. They're like, hey, how much you need? And we don't really need anybody's money now. Yeah. So, it's one of those things where you got to believe in yourself, but you got to do it the smart way. And we also did not ask our family to invest, like say, hey, loan me 50,000 or loan me 100,000. There's a real PPM agreement. Again, attorneys do that. And there's a business structure in place where, hey, if you give me this money here, I'm going to give you back this money with interest, and you get, rights in perpetuity. And so for anybody who's really out there building a business or looking, let's say, even if you're looking to do a film or anything in the entrepreneurial world, make sure when you get investors, if they are your family members, that you do it the right way. It shouldn't be loan me some money, drop the check off, and there's no agreement. Like, it doesn't matter whether it's your daughter, your daddy, sign an official agreement because it'll make sense later. But it is very challenging to get funding. But the only way that you can survive that process, whether you're going to a bank or wherever you're going, is you have to have the right paperwork. You got to have the right trail. So do things the right way with the accountants and having, all that you need to be able to do it, because it's tough.
Beautifully said. And I think really the big gem is about that private placement agreement. I mean, if you're going to sell stock or ownership interest, really having that really tight. And I love how you said everybody does the friends and family realm. Some do it differently. Yeah. But it's the friends and family realm. That's a natural part of the venture capital of the business. And so really great advice. We're going to dig a little deeper in that because I see a couple of questions coming in about that. How about you, Anthony? How did you talk about going to that first bank, getting the refusal, but how did you do over time?
Yeah, so I mean, investors want to invest in great companies, right? They want to know how to deploy their capital. And for us, we didn't have a business, right? And so for Rob and I, we were like, listen, in order for us to try to fund the construction, in order for us to fund the architect, because all those things cost money, because again, we were taking this really old movie theater and we needed to revamp it to a modern, very boutique type, establishment where guests actually wanted to come. And so for us, the first thing that as a small business, you go to is, you think of going to a bank, right? So we put together, I told you, we put together our business plan. We had thought it through. It wasn't our first business plan that we had done before. So we thought we had a great idea. We thought we had a great pitch. We presented it to the bank, and the day of the meeting, after the meeting, they said, "This is great. We love it," right? So Rob and I, we literally walked out the doors, shook hands, like, we got this, right? We got this. And so a couple of days passed, and we're following up. Is there any movement on this? Any traction? Hadn't heard anything. And then we call the representative. Is there any movement, any traction? She's like, "This still in underwriting." Okay, great. And so probably about 5 days later, she calls us. She's like, "Hey, I need to get a conference call with both you and Rob." And I said, "Okay, great." She's like, "Unfortunately, guys, the bank has decided not to fund your project." And so we said, "Okay, can you tell us more? Can you tell us why?" And she said, because they didn't believe in the future of the industry, right? They didn't know, and I'm pretty sure Tressa, has experienced the same thing. They didn't believe in the future of the industry. And here it is, a movie theater that's not AMC, right? That's not Regal, that's not Alamo. We wanted to do something that was more community-based. They didn't believe in it. They didn't see the future value, right, of our business. And so they turned us down. So in that moment, Alicia, Rob and I literally had a kind of come to Jesus moment. And we said, "Can we do this? Right? Is this venture possible?" And so what we said was, if we believed in it this much, because one of the things I'm really happy to see with Tressa, and is so super motivating, is that Rob and I always had the idea that the movies are being made. There are amazing producers, amazing directors making these movies, but then they needed an outlet, right, to show these films, because movies like The Banker and like Harriet, they were not wide released in Maryland. They just weren't, and they were amazing movies. So, these directors, these producers, these studios, they wanted to make the movies, but they weren't being shown in our community. And so Rob and I, said, "You know what, we got to figure out how to open this movie theater." So we self-funded it, right? So, Rob, we cracked the piggy banks, the proverbial piggy bank, so to speak. Our own personal loan, we tapped into our savings. And we literally funded the construction ourselves because we just believed in the project so much. And so sometimes an entrepreneur, you have to invest your own capital, but a lot of it came from, we knew that one day we were going to be doing something. And so I started saving money years ago, right? So that, 10 years down the line, I can invest in my own business. I didn't need somebody else. Now, granted, it was still hard, right? It was a lot of, bologna sandwiches, and you know what I mean? Like, you hear about those things, but it was that sacrifice that really has made us where we are today, because we had such a vision of what we wanted this theater to become.
I love how you talked about, there were moments when you could have said, if they don't believe in the vision, why should I? But that wasn't your take. It was, they don't believe in the vision, but the vision is still prosperous.
Yeah.
And it's still real. And we should still pursue it, which I think is so inspirational for so many. And I see the comments, y'all, for people who somebody doesn't see the same vision that they have.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you should give up on the vision.
That's right. That's right.
And really think about the investment. Because I'll be honest, I invested in Lowe's and AMC. When the COVID happened, I was like, those stocks are gonna go down. Yeah. But the movie industry is not going out.
That's right.
So that was a stock I gobbled up while it was cheap. But no, you're so right. Excellent points. You get a lot, y'all are getting a lot of shout outs. So I'm going to get to all of them.
Alicia, can I say one thing about
go ahead. Yes, please.
It just really made me smile when he said, listen, if it took eating bologna sandwiches or whatever, because that's the thing that people don't realize. If it's your vision and your dream, you got to go all the way, and it may not always be comfortable, right? You got to miss out on some things. So I hear people all the time, they get on the phone with me to try to figure out how to finance their film, but they go to the hairdresser every week is playing. They want to get the nails done. They still taking them trips. They will get dressed up and spend $2,000 just to get a selfie. But then your dream, you can't finance your own dream because you're not really that serious. Like if you're really serious, you got to sacrifice some stuff.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Now I want to get into this question because really gets to the heart of both of you have confidence, faith, clearly vision. And we received this question in Facebook, which is, what made you feel confident in taking those professional pivots? You talked about, Tressa, you going from being a school teacher, then to being an author, then to having a production company. Anthony, healthcare industry, into starting a movie theater, a grand vision. What did you draw upon in making those pivots? What were things that you kept in your mind, maybe kept saying to yourself? Tressa, I'll start with you and then Anthony.
Yeah, I would say for me overall, it's my faith. Of course, I'm going to strategically look at every situation and say, does it make sense? Look at the resources, get the help. But it's my faith. Like, I'm so covered that I can't even explain. There's no way to even explain it. Even now, Alicia knows the behind the scenes, and I'm sitting here right now with a broken wrist, broken elbow, broken leg, and I'm still like here because I'm good. I'm covered, that is a big part to anything that I do. I got to make sure that, because if it's not what the Lord said I should be doing, it's not going to be prosperous anyway.
That's right.
It took me a long time to realize that. I don't want you all to think that I always knew that. It took a long time for me to realize, okay, you know what? I got to stop and pray about it before I do it, because I was just doing what I wanted to do and what I thought I should be doing at first. And it's made all the difference. And now, the deals come, like we said, the money comes, everything else comes because we're doing it in order, in the right way.
Excellent. Beautiful, beautiful point. Y'all getting a lot of amens.
Amen, y'all.
Yeah, amen. Anthony, how about you? What made you, where did you draw confidence from when you were making those pivots?
Yeah, so I'll be honest with you, and this is for the audience. I think you're always apprehensive. You're always apprehensive because every decision that you make about your business, about the people that work for you, the people that work with you, you may not make the right decisions all the time, right? But that it's in their best interest, right? And so as the leader of the company, you have to be the one to create the vision, right? And then you put the people and the things in place, right, to help get there. I think, Tressa's point in that, I have same here. I have a very strong faith background because let me tell you something. There were days when I needed to lean onto something that was bigger than myself, right? Because you go through, nights where you're only sleeping 3 or 4 hours at a time because you're thinking about capital, you're thinking about cash flow, right? You're thinking about all these different things at one time, and you realize you can't do it on your own. So you need some type of divine intervention because people can't help you at times, right? People cannot,
That's right.
What you go through as entrepreneurs, it's just sometimes people can't help, right? So you got to get on your knees and say, Lord, if it's your will, help me get through this, right? And then you have to, take the next step. But I knew that, we were in a good position as we were starting to, to grow the idea, and when we kind of, got different recommendations from people, that it would, and Rob belongs to a very massive church, so he also, started to, kind of share the idea with people that, people are like, we need this in the community. We want this, like, that's fantastic because we want to show more, minority-owned films, right? We had directors and local producers say, I would love to see my movie up, on the marquee, right? And so that was such a, self-fulfillment for us. They're like, you know what? Again, it was just those little reminders to say we got to see this through, regardless of those hard days, those 3 or 4 3 hour nice sleeps. We have to see these things through, and we knew that we had a foundation of our background that we would make the right decisions. But it was the people, it was the family that we had to lean on, our faith we had to lean on and say, you know what, this is bigger than us, so we have to make sure that we see this through.
No, don't. Did you want to say something, Tressa? I saw you.
No, listen, I'm over here trying to clap and amen and all this stuff. That is good stuff right there. I mean, yeah, that's when your dream is really fulfilling, some community goals. That's huge. That's huge.
Mhm,
And Anthony, I'll tell you this, it's funny that we're on this panel together, because I remember either it was your grand opening, it was something a while ago, but I was probably in the trenches trying to survive myself at the time. But I remember several people sending me the link saying, hey, look what's coming, look what's coming. And I'm in PG County, so I'm probably like maybe 45 minutes away from you, but I was like, oh my goodness, I'm definitely going there one day. And now we're on here. We gonna do a premiere there, honey.
Yeah, that's a blessing. That's right. That's right.
Entrepreneurship Matters premiere of Tressa Smallwood.
We are doing it.
And
Alicia's gonna host for
that's
us.
right. That's right. I'm gonna make it happen. Yes, I will. Yes, I will. I love how you applaud one another and lift each other up. And that leads to a question that we've received a couple of different times in the comments. And Tressa, you must be the mentor to a lot of people. Lynette Blackwell talking about how amazing a mentor you've been.
I love her.
We're receiving a lot of comments about mentorship and it being one of the best things that they've ever done in their career. So let's talk about mentorship, because both of you talked about that as being key and pivotal in your success as entrepreneurs. Can you talk a little bit about how did you come to that realization? And two, how have you been able to gather to yourself mentors? Clearly you are mentors to others. So how has that played a part in your success? Tressa and then Anthony?
Yeah, I mean, I shared earlier that I come from an educational background. So I knew going in, you need mentors. I knew not to try to figure it out myself. And so I made sure, when you're seeking a mentor, you make sure you go to those people who have proof that they have done something in your industry and can help you, right? Like if y'all need surgery, don't come to me. I'm mess you all the way up, right? If you need accounting work, don't come to me. Like, so because a lot of times now, because of social media, people present like I can be your coach, but make sure that they have something that they can really show you that they've done, because everybody's getting tricked out there nowadays. So for me, when I needed to get mentors in the film industry in particular, I ended up finding two guys. They lived in LA. Obviously, we have IMDb, so I could search their credentials. I could see the movies that they actually made and could ask questions. But at the same time, there were people saying, oh, I can help you. And then I would say, oh, well, send me your reel or show me something that you've done. And then they haven't really done anything. So that's when I was like, okay, I know to get mentors, but I have to be careful about who I link up with. And then the flip side to that is, because I come from the educational world and I love teaching, like that's no matter how many movies I make, I still love teaching. That's my passion. So I have a mentorship program. And so when people come to me, if they ask me about doing a documentary, well, I've never done a documentary. So I'm going to bring somebody else in who's done a documentary. Yeah, I can talk to you about the distribution side of that. But I think we have to always, think about what do we really know and what we can share with someone else, and pull that next person up and help them and share, like all the stuff that I've been through. Nobody in my mentorship group will ever go through that, because I've already paid the price. So now they're on easy.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah. And I love my mentors. Like they are the absolute best. So yeah.
I love that you gave a quotable. It's going to show up in the feed. You'll get a copy of it. But you go to people who have the proof that they should be mentoring you.
Yeah.
Because it is so important. You are so right. So many people are coaches and experts that don't have the proof. And when you get someone with the proof, it's a whole different story. Anthony, I'll turn it to you. How is mentorship played out in your entrepreneurship journey?
Yeah, so there's three things I look for in a mentor, right? I call it, it's the 3 A's, right? A mentor that's available, a mentor that's analytical, and a mentor that's an active listener, right? Because without those three fundamental things for me, that mentor can necessarily understand my needs and help me solve the problems that I'm going to be facing. And I think Tressa brought it up. You have to have someone that is also active active in what you're doing, right? To your point, again, I'm also not going to, hire a mentor, bring on a mentor that is a surgeon, right, to help me, launch a movie theater, right? It just doesn't match, right? The other thing I learned about being, having a mentor is, and this is one of the things that I've learned that I don't think we do enough of in our community, is sometimes you have to be willing to pay for a mentor, right? Like, pay for their time and say, and it doesn't have to be, I'm going to spend $100,000, $20,000, but if you're inviting them to ask them to share their expertise, it may be some type of stipend that's saying, you know what, I am grateful, I am appreciative of the knowledge that you're going to share with me, because here's the thing, you're going to 10x that anyway, right? Based upon their valuable experience. So, sometimes be willing to, pay for a mentor if you need to, right? And if you have the funds to do it, because that small investment has a huge ROI with the knowledge that they're going to bring. So, and for us, we had, again, the community is small. So, I know Dennis and Mike and those guys that help us build our audio and construction of the theater. Those guys helped us get to where we are. And sometimes, again, we've taken them out to lunch. Those type of things, you got to sometimes, be willing to pay for the expertise. And I think we don't do that enough, I think, in our community. And it is not that, don't feel bad about it. It's, sometimes that's kind of what you need in order for them to pour in you, the blessing of the ROI that you're going to see within the next 3 to 5 years.
That's so true. We pay strangers all the time for stuff.
That's right. That's
we
right.
pay strangers, people we don't know, don't care about us, don't love us, not going to pour into us. We pay them all the time, but we can't. You're right. You have to sometimes pay those we know. Tressa, you sat up. I saw you sit.
Oh, no, look, I'm good. They got me covered over here. I had to switch positions over here. But Anthony said something about paying mentors. I wanted to just share a funny story. The mentor that I started out with in 2016, again, I researched, he came with a wealth of knowledge. Everybody kept telling me, why are you paying that kind of money? That is just ridiculous. That is too much money. Fast forward, this guy has gotten me meetings in places that you can't even imagine. I mean, I have been at tables that people are like, where did this little girl come from?
That's right.
And it has paid off, but there were so many people telling me that's too much money. Why are you doing it? Don't do it. And it's just like, if the person can give you access, can teach you something that you don't know.
That's right.
Why would you not want to pay the person? Like, people are so accustomed to counting somebody else's money. Like, just do what makes sense for you. And I am so glad that I made a decision to pay them, because it has paid off. Like, I can't even explain. I want to write them another check and just say thank you.
Yeah.
No, you would pay for a degree. You pay for any other thing.
That's right.
You pay for expertise.
That's right.
And the industry. And that is so true. I mean, I remember I had a mentor who she didn't know me from Adam, and I did pay her. And it was in large part because I was paying for her expertise. It was something I had no idea about.
That's right.
And her time was valuable.
Yeah.
That's right.
And so you're so right. Let me ask this question. Then we're going to make sure I'm going to confirm with Jackie that we have a special guest on the line so I can ask the question from them. But folks are asking this question. How did you both go about marketing yourselves? Because people know about both of you. Like, y'all big deals. Y'all real big deals. So what marketing considerations did you make for your businesses? How did you build that into, your business plan? And that's advice for the other entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs to be that are watching. How has marketing played a role in your journey? So Tressa and then Anthony.
Yeah. So for me, I have two different strategies. One strategy was when I was broke. Okay. You need to be
the broke strategy.
Yeah. You need to be real about your coins, right? Because, some people are like, oh yeah, I got a publicist. And I'm like, what did you do when you couldn't afford a publicist? Right. So, you got to be real about your financial situation. So, again, I have a marketing background. So I was accustomed to like really putting myself out there. And I knew that marketing was a big piece of my business from the very beginning. When I started out early on, before we had, you know, Facebook and all of that going on, we used to show up as an author. I used to do so many book signings, hit the road. I mean, it was just unbelievable. So I made a name for myself as an author by, I mean, like really grinding and putting out that money to do it, even when I didn't really have it. But it helped me because I became popular as an author, which helped to develop the brand, right? And then fast forward, when I started really making money, I did different things like hiring a publicist to start, you know, helping me with that process and getting me speaking engagements. And, you know, I kind of put it on a publicist and a company to do the work. Yeah. Now that we are heavily into the movies, we obviously have to have a Megamind Media marketing team. So we have an in-house team. And then we still have a publicist, a traditional publicist, but we spend a lot of time for social media marketing, running ads, driving traffic to our business. But these are qualified people who do that work. I don't try to do it at this point. You know, I think the biggest challenge we have as entrepreneurs is that we don't know how to grow. Yep. At some point, you can't do everything.
That's right.
Right? You can't do everything. And you're not even good at everything. I think people they're afraid to say, I'm not good at everything.
That's right.
So I think the biggie is hire those people, you know, who can do the job that you can't do. You stay focused in your field, but grow at a pace where it makes sense, you know, where you're not spending money that you don't have at this point in the game as your business starts to grow. So you got to learn to scale your business over time anyway. But I think that for anybody who's new out there and starting out, you got to give it your all. You got to put that time out there and you got to market yourself. Even if you don't have the money to hire teams right now, you can still do it. Take courses. I mean, everything is on YouTube right now. It's like a whole university for free.
That's right.
Right? But if you don't spend the time to do it, you know, and I've met people before, they say, oh, I'm not on social media. Well, listen, I don't even know how you think that you're going to run a viable business and not have a social media presence. Even if you personally don't know how to do social media, hire somebody who can do it for you because you need to have a presence.
Yep. No, absolutely. How about you, Anthony? How did you think about marketing?
Yeah, so I'll be honest with you. To stress one, we didn't at first, right? We were trying to open up a Black-owned movie theater in a Jewish community, right, in Pikesville, Maryland, right? We didn't know how to market it because we weren't sure. We didn't want to alienate any particular group, right? The theater was more. We wanted to build something within this community that invited everyone, right? And I think. You got to make promoting and marketing a priority, right? Going to the gym every 2 weeks and then eating pizza all day is a clear sign.
That's me, Anthony.
Yeah, that you're not fitness is not necessarily a priority, right? So it's the same in business, right? You have to make promoting yourself a priority, I think. And so, for example, literally 2 days ago, to Tressa's point, we just brought on a guy named Ethan that is helping us with our social media. We had already had it like on Instagram, but now we're doing it, intentionally different. And so we have to understand also that we do have a brand. And so you got to kind of get that brand out, make it personal, right? Next Tech Cinema isn't any other business, right? And we're not trying to be, but we do understand, the areas that we serve and who we really are. So really knowing, what business that you're trying to promote, what your value proposition is for the market and for the people that you're going to serve. And I think being successful people really understand that concept. And so we weren't there at first, and it's okay not to be there. I think initially when you're starting up your business, but you got to make marketing a priority, and you have to understand yourself as a brand, right? In order to to make sure that you're out there, and then understand the different avenues. And to Tressa's point, the people that can help you get there. I'm not an expert at social media marketing. I'm not an expert at SEO, right? But there are individuals out there that are. So, understanding, that, those are your limits, but then hiring up, right, for people to play that role.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let me ask this question. We just confirmed she's on, and I also want to give a shout out to all the people who are watching. There's somebody watching from Germany. That's so good. I mean, thank you for watching from Germany. Those of you who are watching all over the U.S., appreciate you too. We have Oprah on and a number of other investors. So this is the question: what can people do at the varying levels of their ability to invest? And that's time, money, resources, attention, all those things to support your businesses, but to support ones like yours. So they not only start, but grow and thrive in our communities. Because what we know is that, Tressa, you are employing more people from our community than someone else. Anthony, we know that you are employing more. There is a multiplier effect by your success. So can you talk a little bit about that, Tressa, and then Anthony?
Yeah, and do you want me to lean more towards because it sounded like a two-part. Kind of give me what you really want me to hone in on, and then
I'd love for you to talk to the investors, like how can we support, and then I'd also like you to talk to those of us who, we can watch your films, how we can.
Got it. Okay. No, that's perfect. That's perfect. I just want to make sure I don't miss anything. Yeah. So to investors, and I'll give it in two ways. One, if there's a business that you're looking to start, gathering those investors, because I think a lot of people have those questions, right? How do I get investors for my business? You have to create your one sheets, you have to create your plan and present it to them, right? And if you're not good at presenting it, hire somebody who can present it and do those talks for you. When I first started out, even presenting to my family, I would have somebody else run those investor meetings so that they could talk about what the points are, what the, how do you get the your rate of return? When is it coming? Because people want to know, if I invest, when is this money coming back, and what are the risks? So having somebody, a structured way of presenting that information, I think number one makes the most sense. Tam, hold on 1 second for me up. Sorry about that, y'all. So yeah,
it's okay. That's the production team. They've been helping
us. Yeah, it's a production team. They got movies going on over here and everything.
I appreciate it.
But that's if you're looking for investors for your very own business. Like over here for Megamind right now, we're not necessarily looking for investors, but what we always look for are people who have skill sets over here to be able to join the Megamind team, right? So directors, producers, writers, all of those people, that's a way to invest into our business by having a skill set. We do casting calls all the time. Over the next 6 months, we're shooting movies in the Maryland, DC, Baltimore area, Atlanta, Dallas. So, I know people are watching from a lot of different places. We're going to shoot a movie in Atlanta. So I know you'll end up giving everybody the social media info for them to follow us. But we post all of that information on our social media platforms so they can come join the team. Sometimes you can just join the team because you want to learn and get the knowledge so that you can go and produce your own movies, right? Sometimes people don't realize interning and getting around the business that you think you want to be in is important, because a lot of people think that shooting movies is a glamorous thing, but you get on set and you work with us for 14 to 16 hours, you are tired. You're like, I don't know how these people do this. So it is a difference. And that's why I have a mentoring program, because, I teach people the real deal about the industry, not just what you would learn in school about the actual execution part of producing a movie, but people need to see reality, because I don't think the visuals that are out there tell you the truth. You see me on the red carpet and they like, oh, you were cute. And I'm like, honey, I was just crying like 20 minutes before I got there. That's people are not real about this entrepreneurial game. That's right. And I'm always very open and honest about it. Like, I love it. I love this path that I'm on. But it is challenging sometimes. And I think as long as you tell people the truth, they can handle it better when they get in it, instead of making them think that, oh, it's so easy. And, I was broke for like 5 years straight trying to keep that every dollar I made, I would get a big check from a network one year and literally invest that money back into the next movie.
That's right. That's
And
right.
my children would come back and say, well, you told me we were just going to be broke for a little bit. And I'm like, oh, I forgot to tell you, we reinvested. We reinvested.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
You know?
right. I love it. I love it. I love how you approach that from multiple angles, because I think that's really helpful. The investment of your talent in my business as well. Anthony, how about you? What would you say to Oprah, to
Yeah, I think, in trying to identify, investors, I think it's important to really identify investors within your niche, right? So I think one of the biggest, mistakes that, budding entrepreneurs, right, they make is kind of begging funds from like an investor that don't necessarily care to listen, that aren't necessarily in your industry, right? Because you're so desperate for capital that, you believe that anyone will help market your business, but sometimes those individuals are not necessarily ideal for your industry, right? And so I think, partnering with an investor that really understands the movie industry, that really understands production, that really understands, what it is that we need within our communities, right, to get these stories out. And so for us, what that means is, Alicia, is changing, really like our PR strategy, right? And making sure that we kind of really solidify our digital presence. And again, this is what I was trying to mention before, like 2 days ago, we're kind of really starting to revamp our idea and how we, strategically design our social media, right? And really be thoughtful and intentional around who it is that we need to bring in to take Next Act Cinema to the next level. And what I mean by that next level is that, when The Banker launched, The Banker wasn't shown in every movie theater in Maryland, neither was Harriet. But those are such poignant movies that are out there that are relevant to our history, right? That we don't necessarily know about. And so we need more Next Act Cinemas. It doesn't have to necessarily be Next Act, but we just need more Next Act Cinemas because there are a lot of studios that have such great content that's not necessarily being shown at these major movie studios. So, creating the vision, but they want to see your books. How successful are you? How successful are you at managing the capital that you have, right? Are you investing yourself in the business, which we already did, right? So those type of very important, ideas and how we are going to be able to grow and sharing with them how you want to grow organically is really important to be able to articulate, right, to investors that you're looking, to invest into your business for the long-term strategy, right? Because at the end of the day, like I said, they want a return on their investment. And so, for us, it's solidifying, just like I said, solidifying digital presence is also making sure that we, do more around our PR for maximum exposure. And for the individual person that wants to support, Next Act, is really just sharing our story and letting them know, what it is that we're about. So we are very much about the community. One of the things that we pivoted to recently is not necessarily just showing movies, but also doing a bunch of events. So we do, birthday parties, we do, launches for businesses. We actually did a business conference, a couple of weeks ago where she brought her business in and she did a slide and she talked to her employees. So we're doing things differently than out just out of the movie because we have the space. Parent teacher conferences, right? So we're doing things outside of just movies now because of the way our industry has gone. To also, to bring in additional revenue streams, those kind of things can be attractive, right, to an investor.
Absolutely. I love how you have like fully thought out. I mean, our team, we're going to do next big event. We're going to Next Act. We're going to Next Act. We're going to have hosted there. Let me get both of you to give all your emails, all your .coms so people can follow you. I have one last question before we close out. So Tressa, tell us how we can get in contact with you. And if you don't take it down, don't worry. It's in the chat on Facebook. It's in the chat on Zoom. It'll be posted when we post their videos, but give it to us now, Tressa.
Sure. So 2 ways to get in touch with me and 2 different reasons why. If you're interested in being on the email list, so that you could get updates when new movies come out, or you're interested in the mentorship program, then go to tressaazarel.com, and that's TRESSA, and then Azarel, AZAREL.com. You can just put your email in and press submit, and you'll start getting the information. And then you can tell them specifically what you want to get in contact with me for. If you're interested more in casting calls, want to follow the journey, it's easier to do social media. I'm on social media at CEO Azarel. Again, that's CEO and then Azarel. The movie company is Megamind_media. That way you can follow all of the releases and the movies that are coming out. But that's the easiest way.
Excellent, excellent. Don't worry, we're all following now. You're going to get a boost today. Anthony, how about you? How can we get into contact with you?
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, I'm a big fan now of Tressa. I didn't know Tressa was even.
Same here, Anthony. You my cousin.
Yeah. Yes, I'm a big fan. So a couple of different ways, to get in contact with me. So my email is anthony@nextactcinema.com, anthony@nextactcinema.com. We also have a Facebook presence as well as an Instagram presence as well. And so if individuals are looking to, do events, they can, I can reach out to our email at info@nextactcinema.com to do events, but also they can, go to our website as well if they want to, get tickets. We're showing a couple of different movies coming out soon. For example, we have the Halle Berry movie that's coming out this weekend called Moonfall, that we hope will be a great movie. The reviews are really good on it. And then we have, the Batman, we have Ambulance. So we have a couple of good movies coming out. I'm looking forward to showing one of Tressa's movies at our theater. So I can't wait for that. But yeah, those are the ways you can get in contact with us.
Excellent, excellent. Let me ask this last question. What's next? Give me like 2 sentences. What's the next big thing for Tressa? What's the next big thing for Anthony?
Oh, so for me, I am focused over the next 5 years of building a movie catalog that's just as large as my book catalog. So I have a lot of work to do. In 2022, we are filming 20 movies. So y'all pray for me. Because I'm going to apparently I got to do it with one leg and one arm at this point, but it's okay. I'm still covered.
Healing.
And then Greenwood Avenue is my biggest movie that I will film in 2022. And it's based on the Tulsa race riots, but it's a present day account. It's a little bit of it is a period piece, but it's ultimately a present day piece. And it's going to be at Anthony's Theater.
All right. I love it.
Get it into existence. So no, I love it. That's my goal.
I love that. Yeah. So it sounds like the next big thing for me is showing Tressa's movie.
We could
probably end it there. And other things for us, we're pivoting a little bit. So, we're working with Desi Alexander. He's a comedian. And so he's done a bunch of different comedy shows, I know, with Amazon at the theater. And so, so those, again, we're doing things differently, right? We're trying to move to, still staying under the movie umbrella, but also, comedy shows. Also, and then the other thing is, Rob and I thinking about is where do we try to go and launch another next act, right? Hopefully we can get out of COVID, but that's the idea, right? Because we're the only ones in the DMV. So the idea is, where can we potentially launch the next one?
Excellent. It has been an absolute pleasure, Tressa. Absolute pleasure, Anthony. So honored to have you on here, and the whole team put it in there. We are coming for we're hosting something there, and we're going to continue to promote you both. Want everyone to know, come back next week. It's going to be all about poets. We have 2 amazing poets, Nia June and Victor Rogers, aka Slangston. I know many of y'all follow Slangston Hughes. We got Slangston Hughes and Nia June on. Amazing. You do not want to miss. Follow us on JH Connects on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Email feedback, jhconnects@jhu.edu. We want to thank all of our partners: Johns Hopkins University, Johns Hopkins Health System, Hopkins Local, the Mayor's Office of Small Minority Women-Owned Business, Warnock Foundation, Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses, and Bloomberg Philanthropies. Thank you, Tressa. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Alicia, send Anthony my connect us so that we'll have each other's information.
Absolutely.
Oh, I've got it.